Okay, this is the Deity TC-SL1 take 1. Now, we're going to first talk about how timecode works for syncing up your video and audio clips. But if you already understand how that works and you want to jump ahead, you can go ahead and do that. In the little bar at the bottom here, you can scrub until you find the part where we talk about the TC-SL1. All right, what is timecode? First of all, timecode is a system used to identify specific frames within a video and audio clip. And the way it works is it is always in the form of hours, minutes, seconds, and frames. And if we record the starting time code on our camera, and we also record the starting time code on our audio recorder, then in post, we can very easily sync the two of those up. However, there's usually a challenge, especially for consumer-grade cameras and audio recorders. Their clocks usually are not accurate enough to keep track of the time code without drifting. So the reality is that they do drift. So if you wish to sync your video and audio clips which are recorded separately in post with timecode, what you need is a timecode generator for each of those devices. So the timecode generator provides a much more accurate clock. Specifically, it has inside of it a temperature compensated crystal oscillator, which is very, very accurate. And what you do is you connect one of those timecode generators to each of your recording devices, to each of your cameras, and to your audio recorder. And then those record the time code, and that makes it much easier to sync them up in post. The way this works is that whenever you start a recording on your camera or a recording on your audio recorder, the time code is time-stamped into that file, and that can be done in a couple of different ways. If you're using a recorder or a camera which does not have a dedicated timecode input, you're recording to an audio track on the recorder or the camera. If, on the other hand, the camera or recorder has a dedicated timecode input, that timecode is read from the external timecode generator and put as a timestamp in the metadata on that recording, either, again, in the audio recorder or the camera. And then in post, your video editing app can take that and sync those files up automatically. Now, we can go into a lot of detail here, but rather than do that, let's have you go over to this other video where we show a very specific example of using timecode generators to sync your audio and video. We'll also have that down in the description. Next question, why would you ever need a smart slate like the Deity TC-SL1? And there are a few different answers. Number one, I think the main thing is that the smart slate provides a visual reference of the current time code at the start of each and every video clip. That's a huge advantage, and it provides a lot of safety and redundancy and makes it so you shouldn't have to come back and do a reshoot because you can't find the clip that you're looking for in post. So I think a big question is going to come up is, well, this is getting expensive. Timecode generators, several $100s. Timecode slate, smart slate, $1,000. When does this ever make sense? If you're just making YouTube videos, it probably doesn't. In fact, for our YouTube videos, we don't typically use timecode here. We just clap at the start and sync it up in our video editing app, in our case, Final Cut, in post, and we're good to go. However, it does make a lot more sense when you're recording a narrative film or anytime you come home from a filming session and you have tens to hundreds of clips. That's when it saves you a lot of time. And especially if you're working on a film or a project with a budget, a substantial budget, renting a timecode slate is a drop in the bucket to the amount of time that it will save in post and the additional safety and redundancy that it provides. So those are the cases where it makes sense. Now, not only does the Smart Slate provide a record of the current timecode, this is the same thing. This is jammed to all of the timecode generators, so they're all showing the exact same time, but it also provides an audible clap that you can use if for some reason one of your timecode generators didn't get jammed correctly or it fails in some way. You still also have the clap of the sticks to use to sync up your audio and video. So you still have that backup as well. So it brings all of the different options for you to sync things up in post in case one of them fails. All right, let's go ahead and jump in and talk about the Deity TC-SL1 Smart Slate. First of all, of course, it's a timecode slate with an LED timecode display. It also has a dry erase slate board, which is backlit so that if you are filming in the dark, it makes it very easy to read on camera. So that's really helpful. It does have walnut clapper sticks, which have a nice, clean, crisp click when you snap them together. And it also has a color chevron design, so visually you can tell when the clappers have touched each other. You can jam the Smart Slate via Bluetooth with any other Sidus audio devices. These are going to be the Deity TC1s as of today. There may be other devices in the future. And they can reach via Bluetooth up to 250 feet using the iOS or Android app. Now, if you aren't using the app, you can also wirelessly jam them. There's a secondary radio in both the Slate and the TC1 timecode generators. So you can actually use their menus and jam them directly without using the app. That only reaches about 30 feet, but still it's a nice backup option. And you can jam up to 20 timecode devices, 20 Deity timecode devices using their timecode system. Now, you can use this Smart Slate or any of the TC1 timecode generators with any other SMPTE timecode capable timecode generator, but you do have to jam them with a wire. You can't do that wirelessly with any other system. So the wireless systems are all proprietary from manufacturer to manufacturer, so that's out, but you can jam them using both the, in this case on the TC1, both the 5-pin LEMO input-output or the 1/4-inch output. So you have a couple of different options there for jamming with a wire. There's an OLED screen on the back along with a roller controller that allows you to configure the settings, so it gives you access to the menu. It's a nice little feature there. You can, of course, make all those settings on the app as well, so you have a couple of different options. The Slate is powered via dual NP-F550 rechargeable lithium-ion batteries. These are pretty standard batteries, also manufactured by lots of other companies, including Sony and lots of other third parties, so they can be replaced. There are doors to open them. It's wonderful to not have an inbuilt battery that cannot be used or replaced. And so that allows you to power for a good long time. Now, with those two batteries installed and fully charged, you're generally going to get 25 hours with the settings of brightness set to max on both the timecode display and the backlighting for the Slate. So that's going to get you through any production day for sure. We powered the TCSL1 for 24 hours and confirm it can definitely power through 24, 25 hours, as Deity says. So you're not going to have any trouble getting through a production day. And if you do have a long stretch where you're going to be in a situation where you're not going to be able to recharge for whatever reason, bring a couple of extra batteries and you should be good. There's a USB-C port for charging the batteries or for updating the firmware of the Smart Slate. And it does support the PD 3.0, QC 2.0, FCP, or AFC quick charging protocols. You should use a 15-volt 2-amp power source, whatever you're using, and that could be a battery bank or it could be some other maybe AC adapter to plug in, whatever you need there. And it does take about 3 hours to charge the batteries to full charge using the inbuilt 25-watt charger. So you can charge them right in the Slate itself. There's a switch to invert the display. So if you are doing a tail Slate, you can just do something a little bit like this if you're slating at the end of a take. And again, it's really convenient. You can do it one-handed because there's a little clip on the back and a little notch for your finger or thumb to do the Slate. So you can invert it like that. That's really nice. Also, the power switch does have a cover to prevent accidentally turning it off, which is really good. And there's also a lock mode for the menu to prevent you from accidentally changing the settings. You can, of course, set the Slate to either master mode, where it becomes the master clock in your timecode system, or you can set it to jam from another device, or you can tell it to jam from another device once and then lock itself so it cannot be rejammed again until you take it out of that mode. So that's helpful for situations, say, for example, where there may be two crews filming next to each other and you're using timecode for both of those different crews and you want them on different channels and you don't want to accidentally rejam your Slate to the other crew's timecode system. So they've just about thought of everything here. In terms of build quality, it's an excellent aluminum unibody design with black walnut sticks. The switches are all plastic as well as the power door and the roller controller. But overall, the fit and finish seems really good. In terms of accuracy, this is spec'd with a plus or minus 0.5 ppm spec, meaning that it should not drift more than a frame over the course of 48 hours of continuous use. So definitely high quality temperature compensated crystal oscillator clock in there, and you should be able to retain sync without a problem. We jam synced 3 TC1 timecode generators to the SL1, the Slate, and after 24 hours, they were all still on the same frame. So definitely confirmed that this is an accurate clock. It supports various frame rates, including 23.98, 24, 25, 29.97, 29.97 drop frame, and 30. If you are filming at higher frame rates, say for example at 50, you would choose 25. And if you're shooting at 60 frames per second, you would choose 30, and that will also work. The Slate comes with 2 NPF 550 batteries, a USB-C to USB-A charging cable, a USB-A to USB-C adapter for firmware updates, and a 3.5mm to LEMO 5-pin jam sync cable. You can buy other adapter cables for other types of timecode generators if you need those as well. So, a number of questions came up when we first talked about the Deity timecode Slate on our live stream several weeks ago, and let me just run through those. One question we got was, can the Slate be configured to show user bits after the clap or slap instead of the frame rate? And the goal, of course, would be to see the date in addition to time. The answer is yes. In fact, if you go into the Sidus Audio app, for the timecode Slate, you click the little shish kebab menu in the lower right, then you choose Show Extra. And under that, you have a menu of all the things that can be shown after the clapper closes. So, of course, right now, the default is the frame rate that's shown. You can uncheck that if you'd prefer not to see that. You can check down in the second box, which shows the user bits. And if you have the user bits set to the date, then you're showing the date. You can also do custom text. You can see in those other boxes there. So for example, if you're doing an MOS shot, you can put that in there as well. Can you pair an UltraSync Blue or any other wireless timecode generator, maybe the Zoom F3, the Zoom F6, the Zoom F2, to the Deity timecode system Slate or any of the timecode generators? And the answer is no. The wireless protocols are all proprietary. However, you can jam any devices that have a physical wired jam port on them to any of the timecode devices by Deity. Do the Slate and the timecode generators automatically rejam to each other constantly, maybe every second or something like that, like some other systems? And the answer is no, they don't. There are a couple reasons for that. Number one, the clocks are accurate enough that that's not even necessary from the start. Number two, that also saves you battery, so you get longer power times. And number three, it also reduces radio frequency pollution on set, which is already through the roof. So Deity specifically made it so it wouldn't do that. Some people think that it's better if you can do that. I know the UltraSync 1 system does that. I believe the Betso system does that. However, in this case, the philosophy is, you know what? We're putting a very accurate timecode generator clock in here. There's no need to continuously rejam. So you jam at the start of the day, and you should be good for 48 hours. Also, you can, as I mentioned before, set any of the individual timecode generators you're using from Deity as the master clock, and it's just a matter of going into the app and setting it as the master, or going into the menu on the Slate or the timecode generators and setting that one to master. Is it worth $1,000 US? And the answer to that is, it depends. It depends on you and what type of jobs you're working on. So if you're working on a production with a sizable budget, the biggest expense is the crew and the post-production personnel. So those are the biggest expenses. If you had to do a reshoot, that would be very expensive. And it would be very expensive, especially from the standpoint of bringing all the people back, hiring them again to do a reshoot. That's where having the redundancy and the safety of something like a timecode Slate makes a lot of sense. You can rent one of these for just a tiny, tiny portion of the overall budget and get that additional assurance that you're going to get everything you need to get your audio and video synced in post without the post-production crew having to do a ton of work to manually sync. So that's where it makes sense. Does it make sense if you're creating YouTube videos and you're doing a single camera shoot? Probably not. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense there. I think it makes most sense, again, if you have a larger crew with a budget, or if you're doing multicam filming. That's where it makes it a lot easier for you. So hopefully that was helpful. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave those down below. And if you've not already subscribed, make sure you do that. And we'll be sure to get you more great videos on how to improve your lighting and sound for video. Talk to you soon.